welcome back to another episode of Red Hill Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Knight, and I am not joined by your co-host tonight. Mr. 40 Time has some stuff he's busy with. Actually, it's mostly my fault. I'll take the blame. I had an obligation on our typical Tuesday night recording date. And so I texted my man this morning and said, hey, you got time to do it tonight? And he said, nope, you messed it up. I'm set for Tuesday. So anyways, but don't worry. You won't have to listen to me for the entire time because tonight we have a special guest. Yeah, there's no way I was going to be able to, get through this myself. So lined up a guest. I'll get to that in a second. Let's go ahead and do some due diligence. I want to shout out our awesome sponsors, of course, as always. Run down through that list. Make sure you're checking out our sponsors, shopping with them. You probably are, but if not, I don't know what you're doing with your life. So get it right. Shout out to BMF Motorsports, University of Wynn, Energy Coil, Knight Marketing Group, Hard Times Parts and Service, Montgomery Motorsports, Manchester Mines, Schnitz Racing, Platinum General Services, MTC Engineering, Penske Racing Shocks, MPS Racing, and of course Worldwide Bearings. Shout out to y'all, the listeners, the Patron drinkers, the patrons, all our subscribers, whether you're the $1 subscriber or the $20 a month subscriber. We appreciate y'all's support. Still have plenty of giveaways to do. Probably going to do another big one here soon. We still have the frame short neck service from Kevin at Manchester Mines available, and also a carbon fiber tank shell from Mr. Burkhart at BMF Motorsports. So we got those coming. We also have our Penske shock giveaway probably in another couple months. So plenty to sign up for, in addition to our MPS Racing, MTC Engineering, and our Schnitz Racing gift certificates. We still got plenty of those $50 gift certificates to give away. So make sure you're subbed up to be eligible for those. As always, NSFW, not safe for work. Actually might be a little toned down tonight with our guest and just myself. So, maybe the banter back and forth between Mr. 40 Time and myself won't is what causes the pirate talk. So anyways, yeah, so we're in for a treat tonight. I've known this fella for a long time. He is one of the best guys I know. He was one of my first racing sponsors. He was one of my first marketing clients. And yeah, this man has done a lot of things in life, and he loves drag racing, specifically motorcycle drag racing. And it just so happens to be that he has a company, and they're one of our sponsors as well. So looking forward to having Tracy Slemker of Montgomery Motorsports on tonight to, talk about kind of his background and, talk about Montgomery Motorsports, who manufactures carbon fiber motorcycle products, and kind of maybe get some more info on that process. So, yeah, looking forward to having my pal Tracy on. It's funny, I just actually visited Tracy in Montgomery last week. A little business trip. Got to run up to Indiana and see the Schnitz family as well. So, end of the last week, I was fortunate enough to see both those crews, and it's been a while since I've been up that way, so I was just glad to be able to get up there. Let's do a little bit of race schedule stuff. So this coming weekend, July 28th, 29th, 30th, it's actually a really big weekend as far as the schedule I put together with all the races. So kind of just want to run through those. If you're on the fence, go support a series or a track that's having one of these races. And if you can't make it to one of these events, support your local racetrack. Unfortunately, it seems like the tracks are dwindling week by week somehow, some way. So if you've been under a rock, ATCO just shut down. I think what was it, Emerald Island maybe down in Florida, I think just sold. I feel like there might have even been a third one in recent weeks. So, anyways, support these track owners. Yeah, that's all I got for that. Go out and support them. All right, so first event I got on here is it's actually at Beaver Springs Dragway. It is a bike and sled shootout. It is on July 29th, which let me double check the calendar. That looks to be, I'm pretty sure that's Saturday, but just double checking. Yep, that's Saturday. So this Saturday, Beaver Springs Dragway, which I'm pretty sure is in Pennsylvania somewhere. So they have a bike sled shootout. It's $2,000 to win that shootout. Pretty good payout there. They also have Pro ET 560 in a 60 class. So if you're in that area, go make a day out of it. Just a day race. Moving on, we've got Saturday and Sunday. It's actually at Brainerd International Raceway in Minnesota. They have a $2,000 to win each day. So I know you're not going to load up and drive to Minnesota, but if you are out in that Midwestern region and don't have plans, head to Brainerd International Raceway and race for $4,000 over 2 days. That's a damn good payout right there. So make sure if you're in that area, you go support them. Also have the AHDRA at Milan Dragway all weekend, the 28th through the 30th. So if you're into Harley racing there, we've got PMRA at Mid America Dragway, and I think that's everything I got. So 1, 2, 3, 4 events spanning from Pennsylvania, Michigan, Minnesota. I'll be honest, I'm not really sure where Mid America Dragway is. Just being honest with y'all, but PMRA is there. So I think I'm gonna look it up for y'all. I really don't know where that is. I want to say it's like Kansas. It just sounds right. I know I've heard of it, so I haven't got my new computer all the way set up. I do have it, but I'm on my old computer, which is trying really hard to take a shit every day. I'm just gonna be honest. It's on its last leg, so it must know that I have my new computer in possession. Wow, look at that. All right, well, something's working. Mid America Dragway is in Kansas. So, all right, y'all. I know you do not want to listen to me babble for too awful long tonight. So, yeah, let's just get right into it. I'd like to welcome, like I said, a longtime friend, fellow motorcycle drag racing enthusiast, a business owner, a father, grandfather. Welcome to the show, Mr. Tracy Slemker.
All right, as promised, welcome to the show, Mr. Tracy Slemker. How are you doing tonight?
Very good. Thank you very much, Ben Knight.
We're without Dustin tonight. I already told the listeners, and I already told you before we started recording, Dustin had bigger fish to fry tonight. So it's just you and me, but that's A-okay. We just got to try and set some download records with this interview. That's all
Okay.
I ask.
Sounds good.
So I kind of gave everybody, the listeners, a little background, of you and how I knew you, and kind of leading up to the interview. But why don't we just kind of take it from how you got involved in motorsports, motorcycle drag racing specifically? Because I know you have a long history, and I mean, we could probably take a couple episodes to really discuss multiple things from, how you got involved in your racing career to your business and everything in between. But maybe just get the listeners kicked off on how you got into racing and whatnot.
Okay. Actually, my dad was into street racing,
Nice.
and like a lot
which
of
is
dads.
which is now a big thing once again.
Yeah, that was back in the 70s, and mid to late 70s and early 80s. And my dad was never much of a Harley guy. He
Okay.
liked the CB750 Honda,
Mm-hmm.
and I was probably 10 or 11 when that came out. And he dealt in motorcycles from time to time. And then when the Z1 Kawasaki came out, he was way into those also. And at the time, I rode all the time when I was a kid. I was always on motorcycles. And anyway, I was the smallest guy or the smallest kid around that could ride. So I'd get thrown on the bike and for some street racing activities. And
So what you're telling me, and I didn't know, now I feel terrible because I kind of gave the listeners a preview. You know, I said I've known Tracy for a long time. We're friends. We work together. I was like, we do every, you know, I was like, we did run the gamut. I said he was one of my first sponsors, and he was one of my first clients. And I was like, hell, I was visiting y'all last weekend. So I did not know that actually. You were a grudge
yeah.
racer from the go.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so.
That's awesome.
My dad ran a bar, and so there was obviously the gambling and that type of thing, and I would be out late at night with my dad, doing, doing a little street racing from time to time until my mother would find out and then put the hammer down. But no, that's kind of how things started
I
1,000 years
gotcha.
ago. And but anyway, I got interested in other things along the way, in education, healthcare, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of stayed away from motorcycles that, for a period of time.
Right.
The only bikes that I rode were actually my dad's in the 80s and even in the 90s. And
Okay.
I think I may have owned a half a dozen during that time period, all street bikes. But anyway, got busy with college and residencies and all that type of thing. And so I kind of stayed off the motorcycle. I started a family, got married,
Yeah.
started a family, all
Took a
those
little
types
hiatus.
of things. Yeah, a little hiatus. And then, well, when I was in college, I was actually driving too, Formula Fords.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I'm pretty close to Mid Ohio and Indianapolis Raceway Park. And so I had some, I got some seat time in Formula Fords and some of the road race cars, that type of stuff.
Right,
But
right.
anyway, the and it actually, that's how Montgomery Motorsports started, because of sponsorship dollars. I needed to incorporate to receive sponsorship dollars, and
Okay.
yeah, that would have been in the 80s. So anyway, yeah, thinking back on some of that stuff now. But
So you
then
had the name in the quote unquote company for a long time, but wasn't until later on did you actually start doing manufacturing style stuff.
that's correct. Yeah, and actually, I used that. It was a C corp, and it was alive, so I just continued on with it. It's actually the first corporation I ever incorporated with. So the yeah, it's the oldest one I have. But
Nice.
yeah, and then let's see, in the late 90s,
Mm-hmm.
um, I saw Reggie Showers
Uh-huh.
riding pro stock bike for geez, I just forgot his name. Reggie was just there in Houston. Um, ah, I forgot the owner's name, but anyway, I saw Reggie on some television show, racing television show, and they were talking about him being a double amputee, and I I had a couple of companies. One was a private practice where we fit patients, and then I have another company that does supply work for parts and pieces for artificial limbs.
Okay,
And
right.
anyway, at the time, it looked like a decent opportunity from a sponsorship standpoint. Reggie, obviously being a bilateral below the knee amputee,
Mm-hmm.
and very well spoken, good racer, and so I called him up and
Out
had
of
him
the blue.
come. Yeah, just out of the blue, and had him come to town. And he was in the process. Harry Lartigue was
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
as who was he was riding for. And anyway, his Reggie had gone off to do his own team at the time. And so we started kind of slow, and I started a sponsorship program and integrated marketing and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that went on for a couple of years. And Reggie was qualifying usually, the back half of the field. And out of 16, he was usually 8 to 16 somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, after a few years, we were Reggie had gone through a couple of different crew chiefs and worked with, Billy Bowes and God, I have to think about this. Billy Bowes. There's 2 or 3 that stand out to me. Their names will come to me in a second. But anyway, made some progress, and consistency was a little tricky. And then you meet different people. I met George Bryce, and Reggie, I
Right.
think, was using Vance and Hines engines at the time. And so anyway, George became available
Okay.
from a crew chief standpoint.
Right.
And then also a marketing manager that's worked in our industry and actually came from the pharmaceutical industry. He became available also. So we were able to put a deal together with George crew chiefing, and Ken Johnson doing most of the mechanic work,
Right.
and this marketing guy, his name was Tony Russell. And anyway, it was a good combination. So Reggie did very well. I think he won the U.S. Nationals
Right.
that
Yeah.
year, and won another race, I believe, in Memphis, and qualified number 1 once or twice. Did well in Sonoma, but it was, I think it was shocking. I think it was shocking for all of us except George. I think that he completely expected it.
Really.
And yeah, the Reggie was able to really, George was a pretty good coach for him,
Mm-hmm.
and was really able to excel as a driver. And then from a marketing standpoint, they had Reggie plugged in everywhere. Shriners Hospitals, he was on the front page of every newspaper of every town we went to. And instead of the sports section, he's on the front page.
That's
And
awesome.
then Tony Russell was also very good working with NHRA and continuing the press hits and publicity and that
Right.
type of thing. So that lasted a year, and I think everyone was pretty exhausted from it all. So it was
Right. I mean,
a
that's a
good,
big year for sure.
yeah, it was a good culmination to, I think we maybe sponsored him for about 5 years. But that last year we really threw everything at it. And
Mm-hmm.
and we still get residual exposure from those years that he raced NHRA.
Yeah, I
And
mean, in case anybody missed it, as Tracy was kind of getting going with that story. So Tracy has a prosthetic company that manufactures parts, and then another company that does fitment and stuff like that. So just kind of in case y'all missed that little piece, that's where it stemmed from, with seeing Reggie and getting involved with Reggie's program. But yeah, just going through that. I mean, you and I know, because I work, as I mentioned, I work with Tracy and to help out a little bit with some of his marketing. And yeah, we still use some of the PDI and Reggie Showers racing stuff on some Facebook posts and social media. Just recently we shared one. Actually, I think was it the U.S. Nationals win? I know not too long ago we shared that. It was cool to
yeah,
relive that.
yeah, it was, yeah. Reggie doubled up at that. He won the shootout the week
Oh yeah.
before, and then he won the race. It was a rain delay for a
Oh, I got
week.
you.
Yeah, and yeah, he came back and won the race. It was like I said, it was pretty remarkable. Reggie was astounding in this. His ability to adapt and change and really focus was incredible, and I've never seen anything like it. from a driver's standpoint. And he did everything George asked him to do, and it was pretty amazing to watch, the whole process.
Yeah,
So
I've had
yeah,
the pleasure to meet Reggie a few times, and I'm pretty sure they were all, through you, or maybe I was up there and Reggie came through, something like that. But yeah,
yeah,
just
he still comes by. We still build his legs, and the so yeah, and he also, there's a Donnie Mason is a lifelong friend of his who was actually my general manager. I met him through Reggie. He was my
I
GM for
gotcha.
about
Yeah.
10 years. Yeah. And we all still stay in touch and visit and that. And Reggie still works in the prosthetic industry.
Right,
He
right.
he does some work with a few other supply companies,
Yeah.
and yeah, he does a great job. Very,
Yeah, I
very
mean, like
good.
I said, the few times I've got to meet Reggie, to me it's someone I've known, and when you're a racer, and you know in some regard you always look up to anybody who raced pro stock motorcycle, and you're a motorcycle drag racer, and it's just really cool. The few times I've met Reggie, just such a humble guy, and I feel like one of the last times we were talking, he was talking more to me about my racing stuff. It just made me feel real good. Super great guy. So
Yeah.
have no doubt all the good things Reggie's doing. And like I said, we get to see some of it and share some of it through the PDI page and all. And he's just really a role model for, I guess you would say, that whole kind of field and everything, and for any amputee really.
Yeah, he's pretty inspirational. He's done a lot of things. He did this walk across the Serengeti, and it was a reality show based in the UK. And Reggie, I mean, he's walking around out there in the in the grass, and he said they have all these guards around him because you can get eaten by a lion. Out there, they were what are they following? The wildebeest? I think they're following the wildebeest. And
Oh my goodness.
anyway, he outlasted. It was a reality show, and
Mm-hmm.
he outlasted half of the field, and he has no legs. He's stomping around out there, with his prosthesis on, and it's pretty remarkable. I mean, he's a pilot. He's a licensed pilot. He's done all sorts of stuff.
I didn't know that about him.
Yeah, yeah. He's pretty remarkable. But
Yeah, definitely an inspiration. Like I said, didn't know he was a pilot. I think I'd heard that story about the reality. I mean, didn't he like it wasn't he didn't he do like some crazy hike too? It wasn't Everest, right? But it was some other mountain, I thought.
he
Am I
could have.
making that up? I feel like he
It's
did
not ringing any
something.
bells. I mean, that hike in the Serengeti was like, you got to be kidding me, because he
Yeah, yeah.
called me and he's like, what can I do to prepare? And I'm like, man, I don't know. This is going to be tough.
Yeah.
I think we loaded him up with some silicone liners and a few different things, to try to get by. But they were really roughing it too. I mean, they were living out there, and there was all sorts of challenges, water challenges, food challenges, everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, Reggie can be incredibly tough, and yeah, it's pretty crazy.
That's something else. So what about you? You got back into racing, right?
Well, that kind of came via Reggie, because um, through the carbon fiber in the let's see, that would have been the late 90s, mid to late 90s. More and more carbon fiber was coming into pro stock drag
Mm-hmm.
racing, like air boxes, and then some body work was
Right.
being built. And uh, anyway, the prices of it you think the prices are bad now. The
Right.
prices back then were just incredible. And we at Prosthetic Design, we were building a carbon fiber lab, because there's parts and pieces that we build that are structural carbon fiber components for lower extremity prosthetics,
Mm-hmm.
and I was kind of looking for something with a little more volume because of economy of scale when it comes to
Right.
training staff, the investment of the lab and materials and everything. You'd like to have a little more economy of scale, and it's not uncommon for most facilities to be in multiple businesses, multiple types of business, to be able to build that economy of scale. So the that's how it started, and then what we started with was an airbox for the Gen 1 Hayabusa. I think that was the first thing we started to
Pick
work
something
on.
easy, right?
Yeah, yeah. Perfectly simple. Well, it was,
Oh,
it's an
wow.
add-on part that you could potentially make a little power with. And
Right.
it's,
No,
lightweight,
totally get it.
kind of it fit the
Checked all the
criteria.
boxes, right?
Yeah. So
In one way, it checked all the boxes. And sorry, that I guess me and Tracy are kind of having our own little laughs. Like I said, we work pretty closely together, and we have for years. So, a little bit of sarcasm there. Obviously, that is not probably one of the easier things to start with.
no, it
So,
is not. It is not.
oh, but yeah, I mean, it checked all the boxes, right? So that's kind of how it came about, and the first product you kick-started, right, with Montgomery Motorsports, because you had the
Yes.
infrastructure for prosthetic design.
Yep, that's correct. Yeah. The airbox thing, we got involved with Motec, and I think that was partly with my business manager. See, electronic fuel injection was coming into play,
Mm-hmm.
and we were interested in that and ECU technology, that type of thing. So we partnered with Motec on a couple of different projects, but they did our independent testing for the airboxes for both the Gen 1 and the Gen 2. Dyno testing, and to prove that it made power or it didn't. And
Right.
yeah, so we had a couple of different designs come through with the airboxes, and it turned out to be a fairly successful project for us. And we've sold a lot of airboxes over the years, and they are a nice piece. They're lightweight, and I think there was also a magazine. Was it what was the
Super street
cycle
bike.
Yeah, Super Street Bike. They did an
Yep.
independent study also, and pretty much proved what we had found out with Motec. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, you and I deal with that quite often, just through the business and all. But that's definitely a question that gets brought up quite a bit. How much power am I going to gain with this airbox? Because for the most part, most of the products, you guys are producing at Montgomery are, they're lightweight and functional, but they're not, something you say, hey, it gains X amount of power, because most of it's body work related. So yeah, that the airbox is one that we get quite a few questions about, and getting that independent research done over the years. And it's funny, actually, I hadn't even told you, Tracy, just recently, like in the last week, someone messaged the Montgomery page and said, hey, I loving the airbox. I picked up 4 horsepower, and I'm like, dang, like they actually tested or dynoed, like that's rare. Most
yeah,
of the time,
yeah,
people are like, hey, I can't figure out how to make more power with it. I want a refund.
yeah. We also developed the throttle bodies, the stock Gen 1 throttle bodies to a 49 millimeter, and
Oh, right. Yeah.
yeah, that was pretty successful also. The Now everybody does them, which is great. I think Cecil Towner does quite a bit of adaptations with the throttle bodies, and I'm sure
Yeah.
others also.
Yeah. And I
But
know they have like complete billet ones now, I believe.
yeah, yeah. While we were working with George Bryce, and I ended up going to the drag bike school at Frank Holly,
Oh, that's
out
right.
in
Yeah. It used to
Gainesville,
go
Florida.
through Frank's, right? But it was actually George running it, correct?
Yeah, George runs the motorcycle side of it, and George does the motorcycle drag race training. But Frank also did a lot of sports psychology. He works, did I say George? Frank also does a
Yeah.
lot of work with the University of Florida, the sports psychology and that type of thing. And I got really interested in it because this is kind of strange, but it really helped with employees and myself, people's ability to train and to
Mm-hmm.
retrain and how difficult that can be. And in the school, you'd have 6 or 8 students in the class, and people who had little to no experience, obviously, they generally did very well. Their improvements were significant, very fast in 6 passes.
Right.
And
You had
then,
a clean slate.
yeah, and then people that had a lot of experience, it was much more difficult for them to change 1 or 2 things in how they, drove motorcycle. And
I can
and I've
relate. I can relate, especially trying to ride Max 460 bike the last 2 races. I had all these street bike tendencies that were very, very difficult to overcome. So
yeah,
I can relate.
no, it was a good experience. It was most of the time I'm a little less busy in the winter time.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I was going to all the classes that they offered because I could go get 6 nice passes in, and I get scrutinized by George and Ken, whoever else was standing around, and they take videos and they kind of pick you apart and that type of thing. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the training part of it, and then I leased bikes from George for a few years to run Top Gas, and then eventually built one of our own. And we used it mostly for a lot of it for development work with the airbox and throttle bodies
Mm-hmm.
and some body pieces and that type of thing. So
Gotcha.
yeah, it was good. But going down to Florida 3-4 times a year was nice, just to get away and try to learn something.
Plus, I don't know if we mentioned at all, you're based right outside of Dayton, Ohio. So yeah, I would say in the winter months, having lived there a few years myself, that yeah, I wouldn't mind being in Florida and during the winter.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, and that Frank Holly does some really good work, lecture wise, and really causes you to think and reflect and how you approach your racing and all that. it's
Right.
it's uh, it's very interesting. It's worth it. It's worth every nickel of what they charge. So
Yeah, I
uh
mean,
that's a good experience.
I've never been to Frank Holly's school. I've always known about it, especially with my more car background to begin with. And I've kind of always wanted to go. I don't know, maybe it's something I need to check out as far as just for my school.
Yeah, even if you
To-
just went for the lecture,
yeah.
you don't have to do the drive part, but even if you go for just the lectures and observing, you'll learn a lot.
Oh,
And
I'm sure.
yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean that's what I've been trying to stress, and Dustin's been helping as well, with the University of Win. It's like I tell everybody. In fact, I think you and I were talking about it just last week when I was up, I I can't teach you and I can't be taught to dunk a basketball, like we're not physically capable, right? Like it doesn't matter how much we
Right.
train, but as far as drag racing goes, and specifically to, the University of Win that we started, bracket index racing, that's all teachable things. Like it's just knowledge that you need to go through and understand and comprehend it and then go out and practice it. Like I said, doesn't matter how many times you and I try and dunk a basketball, we're probably never going to get it.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Not without like one of those little trampolines or something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, well, good, very good. So then, maybe walk us through a little bit to maybe kind of, getting to more of a current day Montgomery Motorsports, because as you mentioned, you started off with just, really the one product with the Gen 1 high boost airbox, and now what do we have? 130, 150 different products. I should
Oh
probably
yeah,
know, and because of the website, but I think it's somewhere around there, at least 125,
yeah,
I feel like.
yeah. It just kept growing. People wanting different things, and then Luke and Sam, my sons, they kind of got into the drag racing thing there for a little bit, and so it brought a lot of energy to continue to grow with that,
Yeah.
and then also working on staff and depth of knowledge as it pertains to mold building and pattern building and mold building and creating parts. But yeah,
Yeah. What?
it's go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say maybe I don't feel like a lot of listeners will probably understand the process. And even I mean, I do now, of course, because I've been working with you for some years, but maybe walk through really, maybe the brief version of like how does a part come to be? Like what, just for the people that don't know or understand, how do you come up with a part? Like where do you start, I guess?
Um, well, we've done a lot of things that were, I want to say, our ideas, and then we've also taken off on some of products that were developed in fiberglass, a lot of the
Right,
body
right.
panels and that type of thing. But we sell a seat, a carbon fiber seat for the Hayabusa, and I think the 07, 08, 1000, the 1000s also. And 10, 12 years ago is when we developed those those products. And it is crazy because only been the last 3 or 4 years where they've actually started to sell a lot. And
Right.
it's hard to predict, some of those things and where you invest in patterns and molds. But yeah, I mean, and a lot of times too, it's just things that I like that I want, I want to work with and try to make better or make it more functional or reliable or what have you. But we continue to push the envelope on parts and pieces. There's structural components that we build, and then there's like body panels that are
Mm-hmm.
semi-structural also. But we're in a constant improvement process. Everything that we do, we're always trying to make it better, and I enjoy that. But from an idea standpoint, a lot of times it just comes from people, they keep asking,
Right,
and
right.
um, and usually what if someone's bugging us a lot about doing something, I'll ask them to send me, the stock part or some parts that we can start to take a look at that we could possibly establish a baseline for that
Mm-hmm.
part. And a lot of folks want lowered tanks and the tank shells and that type of thing. And I need to start with something. And the Gen 3, someone bellied up and sent us a Gen 3 Hayabusa tank, and we've been working on how to say recreate that in a
Right.
lower profile, and redesign the fuel cell and that type of thing. So, but like I said, a lot of it comes from people just continuing to ask.
Yeah.
The
So you
the
got that
headlight.
Gen 3 tank and basically what you basically kind of build a mold of it and then you modify to, the goal of a lowered tank.
Yes, the first thing we have to do is make a mold of the actual stock tank,
Mm-hmm.
and once we make a mold, then we'll make a part, usually a carbon part, that we then start to adapt. And and you got to have some creative hands to start to adapt that and cut it down. Somebody who's good with Bondo or clay or whatever you're going to use to recreate that tank. But we make a mold of the first one to make
Right.
the first part, and then we're going to make a mold of the modified piece to generate another part, and then we'll work on fuel
Perfecting
cell
that one.
design, that type of thing. Yeah, it takes some time and effort and a lot of talent. I utilize probably a half a dozen people that are specialists in their area, whether that's, fuel cell design or,
Mm-hmm.
doing the artwork of redesigning the tank, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So it can be kind of tricky wrangling talent.
Yeah,
to,
there's a lot that goes into it that I don't think people realize when, people are like, "Hey, can you make me this?" Well, yeah, I mean, like we could make it. It would cost tens of thousands of dollars, and you might be the only person that has it. So, like, I just don't think people understand what goes into it. That's why I was, just kind of asking, like, maybe give them an example of that. But as you guys heard, guys and girls, there's a lot. You gotta create a mold to have a baseline. Then you gotta reconfigure and make the product what you're hoping. Then you got to make another piece and you got to perfect that and probably have another round of revisions. There's a lot to it. And like you said, the main thing is the talent, the hands-on talent that you have to get and acquire to accomplish all of this. So,
yeah,
um, I
yeah,
know my fabrication skills are pretty much sub-zero. So that's why I don't really mess with anything anymore.
yeah,
Got to know what your strengths are, and that's not a strength of mine. So, yeah, if you're
yeah,
asking for products, they take some development for sure.
yeah, and it helps for people to ask. The more you ask, the more we pay attention to that, and of what people want. Once you go through the design phases and you have a pattern that you really like, then you're going to go through the mold phases for production. And that takes quite a bit of time, money, and effort also to develop molds that are reliable and can put out nice product, every day. So it's when I look at a new product, I'm looking at the initial investment and and you can only project from a
Right.
sales standpoint. And we worry about making parts that people won't afford. And yeah, I can make it. Nobody's going to buy it because it's
Right.
incredibly expensive. And then, you look at better, faster, cheaper ways of developing something or building something, and it can be tricky. So
Let's
but
go ahead. Sorry.
no, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say since I've kind of been around for a while and seen a
Yeah.
lot of the progression firsthand. Do you care to talk a little bit about just like, for instance, with my limited knowledge, but also being around and seeing progression of things like, so originally, like, let's just go back, I don't even know, let's say 6 years ago, right? That's probably a decent time frame. The
Mhm.
molds weren't at a point where you were 100%, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just trying to walk everybody through it, like maybe 100% where you wanted the finished product to be. So then there's a lot of a lot of hands-on work afterwards, and even a clear coat, correct, like originally.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
So now as you've went along and said, and explained like, hey, you guys have worked your asses off literally to get to a point where you're striving constantly, for better product, but also, with the end consumer in mind and trying to decrease costs as much as possible, which, is an uphill battle nowadays. But
Right.
that being
Yeah.
said, now you've gotten your molds to a point where they come out. I mean, they look like to me that they've been already clear coated. Do you care to just maybe shed a little bit of light on that and where you're at with that and how, I guess, how you got there, really? Just a lot of mold redesigning.
Yeah. Uh, you're always trying to get a what we call class AA surface and like a mirrored finish. And
Right, right.
and it's taken a while to continue to develop that. But one of the things you referred to was our mold design. We used to we used to split our molds down the middle, which is normal in the industry, to where you have a midline. So let's say a tail section or a gas tank. The easiest way to design and build that mold is to put a parting line down the middle. And the reason you have a parting line is so the part come back out of the mold. And the parting line, it bolts together, let's say right up the middle. And what that does is it leaves a little bit of a line, and also your layup many times will shift a little bit, so it's very obvious looking when you're looking at something that has a midline parting line,
Right.
and
It's like a
that would be
ridge.
right up the middle. Yes, and it frustrated me because as molds wear a little bit, they will also shift a few millimeters on one end or the other, which will make a few more millimeters on the others, on the other. And so you find yourself having to finish the parts, with clear coat. The clear coat fixes a lot of things in a carbon fiber component. So
Right.
our goal was to get away from clear coat, not only because of cost, but the big thing is weight. They pick up quite a bit more weight, usually about 20-25%
Oh,
when
wow.
you final clear, depending upon how rough your
Right.
your
Yeah. I
part
mean,
was
because
to
you're
begin
painting
with.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're adding quite, and usually it's going to take about 3 layers of clear of urethane, and then that's wet sanded, and another one, and usually about 3 layers. So it but yeah, we wanted to get away from that just from a quality standpoint, to have it's a more optimum component part. And
Right.
so it doesn't have the weight of the clear, and the part came out of the mold. There's not much. The only way to really fix imperfections is clear coat. And and we wanted to get away from that just from a quality
Right.
standpoint.
But
So
now
you
then it doesn't leave much to be desired now. I mean, I was just at the carbon lab last week, and yeah, I mean, these things, you pull them right out of the mold, and I mean, I'd definitely buy them and put them on my stuff right there,
Yeah,
right then and
yeah,
there. And that's before, they kind of do their finishing touches on it. But no, just the progression of the molds and everything is, like I said, I've got to witness it. But I'm glad you touched on that and let people know about that. You and we filmed some videos actually last week that will be out on Montgomery's channel soon. And really, we were kind of just going over what you just told all the listeners about, the parting lines and how molds work. So everybody be on the lookout for those. They're going to be really informative and educational from that standpoint, and it'll probably all kind of click together once you see those videos. But yeah, so I mean, none of the parts that you produce are clear coated, correct?
that's correct. Yeah,
Because you've worked to that point.
yeah, and it's all in the mold surface, and then also how we finish them, and it's mostly buffing and that type of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed every time they come out of the mold. They they look beautiful. And
Yeah.
and we have your challenges. I think we had a run in tonight, and one of the one of the bags gave up. So we end up throwing away quite a bit of product that just doesn't meet spec, and from our standpoint. And but that's the
Y'all will
life of carbon fiber manufacturing.
Yeah, if y'all missed out, go to the Montgomery Motorsports Facebook page. I actually did a little shop kind of walkthrough with Tracy last week while I was up there. And we got to one shelf, and I thought it was all molds, and half of it was actually junk. It was what they deemed to not be of quality. I know my fellow drag racers, y'all would have been fiending for some of the stuff I seen there that's hitting the junk pile, but it's a lot. So go back and check that out. I mean, like I said, I know firsthand, but the lengths that Tracy and his staff goes through to get a top notch product. I mean, it's literally visible in the stack of thousands of dollars worth of carbon fiber that's getting thrown in the dumpster, unfortunately. But that's kind of the standard that Tracy has set, and that's what they follow. So awesome.
Yeah, good stuff. All good
So
stuff.
what's next on the horizon? Just trying to get more new products out, more Gen 3 Busa, ZX10 stuff. I mean, just kind of is that the game plan for Montgomery? Is just continued growth into new product development?
Yes. I mean, currently we're working on a Gen 3 tank, Gen 3 seat, and an H2 tank, and then also some Harley components. We
Yeah.
did some custom Harley components for John Shope at Dirty Bird last year. I guess that started the year before last, and it's about a dozen custom parts for his designs, and we're starting to move a little bit more into the Harley thing every day, and it's different product, different customer,
Mm-hmm.
different challenges as far as that goes, but
Yeah, I
it's
mean, I know that a lot of the listeners on here are obviously for following and listening for drag racing related content, but I also know there's quite a few that are riding some Harleys nowadays. So don't sleep on Montgomery. There's tons of great carbon products for your Harley available right now today from
Yep.
Montgomery Motorsports. So check those out. Make sure you're looking out for those new products. And I'll tell you what, one of my favorite things to see nowadays, and I told Tracy this just last week. Harry, I guess I'll put it like this. I've always been like a little hot and cold on Harley big bagger stuff. I got to see the right one, and I want one. I'm not gonna lie, but I've even talked with you a bit, Tracy. Like I'm scared of the amount of money I would throw at it after I had it, and they're not cheap
Yeah.
to begin with. Um,
Right.
but look, I'm telling y'all, if you haven't seen 23, 26-inch carbon fiber BST rim on a bagger with one of Tracy's Montgomery carbon fiber fenders hugging that thing, it's one of the cleanest things I've ever seen. It's artwork and it's
Yeah.
badass. There's no other way to say it. So
Yeah. No, they're pretty neat, and to try to get that straight because
we're talking a
it's not a
honking
metal
ass
part
fender,
that you can
y'all. It's
bend.
it's big. It's a big ass fender. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the that's been a real experience trying to get all that straight to where when you deliver it, it mounts right up, and the further away you get from center, the harder it is to keep things square. But
Yeah.
no, it's some neat stuff. Very neat.
Heck yeah. Well, good deal. Well, what is there anything else you wanted to let anybody know or
We're
is
getting
that
very close on that ZX10 tank and seat. The
there you go.
we just uh we just
I hope the
finalized.
Montgomery faithful hear this and then they ring the messenger for the next couple weeks.
Yeah, yeah. The I think we've settled on a fuel cell design, and we're trying to get a little bit more fuel going for the roll racer guys, and the shell, it's done, and we're in mold phase right now where we're building production molds, and we're about ready to pull the trigger on some production fuel cells. So the we're getting close. I want it
Yeah.
as bad as you guys. It's a really neat looking piece, and we're gonna have a seat that goes with it. It as an option, and so anyway,
It's close, y'all. It's close.
excited.
The months on end of waiting are almost over. I saw it firsthand last week and it's I, Tracy will tell you, I was like, that's badass. Like I don't know. I couldn't even believe it was a tank. It looked like a pillow. That thing was just flat. But I mean, it was
Yeah,
flat, but it had the, architecture of it. It's awesome. We'll just wait till we share it. It's going to be a great piece for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, okay. Well, yeah, if you don't have anything else, we'll call it an evening. We definitely appreciate you taking the time to come talk a little history with us and for the listeners. We have a lot of people that listen to this during their work day, get them through the work week. So hopefully we
Cool.
entertained you a little bit. But yeah, if you're looking for some carbon fiber parts, definitely check out Montgomery Motorsports. They're one of the podcast sponsors. We also have Mike Burkhart at BMF Motorsports, a little bit different stuff. As Tracy will tell you, there's no bad competition. So we're excited to have, two different kind of companies supporting the podcast. It means a lot to Dustin and I, and we're really glad to have you on tonight, Tracy, and and shedding some light on kind of how you came to be with Montgomery Motorsports, and looking forward to a lot more stuff in the future.
Yep, I appreciate it. Good talking.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this show.